Hey, we're back at the Adawehi Institute. It's Tuesday, and in recent times we've been unable to hold our Wednesday Trinity class, so I always try and put this video out Tuesday night so that when it comes time to meditate, you'll be able to join with us in the energy that we're meditating on this week, which happens to be the energy of Receptive. And you'll have something afterwards that you can do to physically anchor it. That's my goal here with these little Trinity exercises. Give you something from the world of martial arts and self-defense that will help you anchor the energy that you just meditated on. So we hope that you will join us tomorrow night at 6 o'clock doing this meditation, and afterwards try this little exercise. Our exercise tonight comes from the martial art of eskrima, or kali. It goes by many different names. It is a Filipino art. And we're going to use it to help us build a sense of receptivity. Yes, that's right, I said it. I would use receptivity. I think receptive is an awkward word. You might even say being in the spirit of receiving, however you want to phrase it. The idea is that we want to build your ability to move with that energy and draw it in, and there's a way to do that. The particular exercise that I'm thinking of is what the Filipinos call a windmill parry. And it is for any sort of attack where somebody punches you or pokes at you or grabs at you or anything like that. Any hand that you've got coming towards you, you want to reach out and meet that hand about halfway. So when the punch is about halfway, I see it coming, I reach out and I just guide it back past my ear. I don't want to push it all the way out here. That's a waste of effort. It doesn't need to miss me by this much. It only needs to miss me by this much. If the punch hits me squarely, I'm going to be in trouble. But if it lands right over here past my ear, I'm fine. They just hit the air. They don't need to hit the air out there. This air is fine. So here comes that punch. I reach out. I guide it back past my ear. Now, I want to be able to do something with this hand, and if I leave my hand there, I'm tied up. If I pull my hand away, then they might just go whack, 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 and hit me on the side of the head. So I'm going to set a boundary. I'm going to catch the punch, guide it past my ear, and then immediately replace it with this other hand. This sort of sets my space and says, now that hand needs to stay out here. It can't come in and hit me. I'm receiving it out here, guiding it into me, and then I'm setting this boundary of what my space is. This is the important and crucial part of being receptive, of receiving energy that we often leave out. Very often we will ask for something. Hey, can I have that money that you owe me? But we don't do the second part, and that's the important part. Because being receptive is about being part of flow. There is this constant flow of energy coming in and energy going out. You are part of a cycle of giving and receiving. And if you don't act like that cycle is happening, then it tends to break down. Just grabbing things and saying, mine, breaks the cycle. What you have to do is see that receiving, taking something from the other person and saying, hey, that money you owe me, give it to me. Bringing that in, that's completion. You're offering them a chance to complete their part of the transaction. They have some money, they've put some energy into it, it represents something to them, they are handing it off to you, and you say, thank you, I am completing this transaction with you. And then you take the second step and say, and now I'm going to add my piece to it, my details, my definition. That's ownership. I'm taking ownership of it. If I don't take ownership of it, I'm not building my receptivity. If I just take your money and hand it off to somebody else without ever claiming it as my money, then I didn't add anything to the process. And so I'm not going to grow my receptivity. I'm just constantly passing on your money. I don't add anything to the process. And so receptivity doesn't grow in me. But if I say, thank you for giving me that money you owe me, I'm going to use this to paint my back deck. I've added my piece. I've owned that this is my money now, and I have plans for it, and I'm going to define it and use it in a certain way. Claiming ownership of it in that way, that second part of the process, is what builds my receptivity. Just taking things from the outside and saying, oh, that's great, here you go, that's great, here you go, that's great, here you go, that doesn't build my receptivity at all. I need to take it and own it. I need to add my little special juju to this thing before I pass it on. And so this technique, which is really just a self-defense parry for a punch or a poke or a grab, really is helpful in building receptivity because you see I reach out, I encounter this thing, I guide it back into my space, and then I take ownership of my space. I set a boundary, I keep it right there. And now my other hand's free to do whatever. I can continue the cycle, I can punch them back, I can block something else on this side, I can set a grab, elbow, or whatever. It doesn't matter, but I've freed up this hand to do something, but more importantly, I've anchored my space. I've set a definition. I've boundaried off that other hand. I've taken ownership. This is now my part of the process. This is your part of the process. You throw that thing at me, I bring it back. Here's my part of the process. I set my space. I claim ownership. I add my own little special juice to it before I pass it on. And that's the real key to receptivity. It's very clear to see in this little windmill parry. You can do it on both sides. Reach out, replace that hand. Sort of looks like a windmill, doesn't it? 1, 2, 1, 2. Whenever you feel you need to be more receptive, you need to draw some conversation out of somebody. They're being reticent. They're not unloading. They're not telling you the facts. They're not sharing their feelings. Then you can just kind of do a little of this. Maybe not right in front of them, but you can build up your receptivity with this little windmill parry. Yes, it might be nice to save your life sometimes. Somebody throws a punch and you remember to go 1, 2, and maybe even 1, 2, 3. That's fine. But this 1, 2, aside from being a self-defense technique, builds your sense of receptivity. It subconsciously tells you that you have to reach out and you have to guide something into your space. You can't just sit there on the couch and hope that you receive something. You got to call people and go, hey, what about that money? Hey, I'd like to meet you for a game of frisbee golf. You've got to put out there what your need is. You've got to reach out and guide it toward your space, but then you got to own it. You got to say, all right, now that it's mine, here's what I'm going to do with it. If you don't have those two pieces, you don't build receptivity. So just doing this a couple of times every day builds your ability to draw to you what you need by ingraining in your subconscious that you have to reach out and ask for it, but also ingraining in your subconscious that you have to put some definition and some boundaries on it. You have to do something to make it yours. You can't just hand off what you've received without touching it at all. You've got to bring it in and then say something about, now that it's mine, here's how I like it. Once you do that, you are burning into your subconscious brain the two pieces necessary to build your receptivity. 1, 2. You can do this exercise at home, and that will help build your receptivity, but also whenever you receive money, be sure and do those two pieces. Somebody gives you money, use one hand to take it from them, and then pass it to the other hand. That simple act of taking it and passing it to the other hand. Thank you for that money you owe me. I'm going to use this for a down payment on a scooter. Thank you. This money is very helpful. I've got plans for it. That simple act of passing it from one to the other helps build your receptivity. I hope this was useful to you, and if you like this stuff, stay tuned for more Trinity.